Hello, and welcome to the Mentor Dino podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin Rosier. I am an architect and founder of Mentor Dino. Join me each week as I speak with amazing professionals in and around the architecture, engineering, and construction industry, as we are all part of a larger interconnected community. We discuss everything from career stories, lessons learned, and advice for others finding their own unique career path. Thank you to all of our current subscribers, and if you're new, welcome to the conversation. And if you like this episode, please do me a favor by hitting subscribe, like, or share it with a friend. It really helps others be able to discover this resource and support them on their own unique career journey. On today's episode of the Mentor Dino podcast, I would like to welcome David Drazil, architect, author, teacher, content creator, and founder of Sketch Like an Architect out in Prague, which is in the Czech Republic. So thank you, David, for taking the time to speak with me today.
Hey, Caitlin. Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
And I always like starting out with my loaded question. If you don't mind introducing yourself to my audience, in case they don't know about your journey, Sketch Like an Architect, and how you got to where you are today.
Wow, that's
It's a
you want
loaded
a
first
long
question.
story or a short story? No. First and foremost, I'm a dad. I'm a dad of two, based in Prague. But me and my wife, we used to live in Denmark for 5 years, where we studied architecture, finished our degree, and started our careers and working as architects or in the AEC industry. So, but we've come back with the first kid more than 6 years ago, and now we're based in Prague again, where it all started. And yeah, wow, there's gonna be some editing in here. Oh my god, I'm sorry, but since we came back, I never came back to practicing architecture in the traditional sense. And because Sketch Like an Architect was already a little bit up and running and kind of showing a promise of that there's some potential, I just dove into the Sketch Like an Architect full time in 2019. And there's a lot to unpack in between from 2019 and now, but I'll be more than happy to dive into it further.
Yeah, so you did your original schooling in Prague and then shifted over to
Correct,
Denmark,
correct.
or
So we did our bachelor's degree, which was a 4-year program combining architecture and civil engineering here in Prague at the CTU. And after those 4 years, we felt like, man, those were long 4 years. We would really appreciate a change. And so we didn't want to just change a school and go to another city. We say, okay, why not to go into some foreign country, go abroad, go study abroad? And we are in the Czech Republic, which is kind of, I like to say, in the heart of Europe, in the middle of Europe. So we can go both south or we can go north. And we decided to go north. So we applied for, I think it was 4, 5, 6 different universities in Scandinavia and Denmark. And we both got accepted to Denmark, to Aalborg University. And so that's where we went. After those 4 years of bachelor's, we moved to Denmark, studied 2 years, master's degree, very, very different experience, educational, between Denmark and Czech Republic. And after those 2 years, we moved again from Aalborg to Copenhagen to look for jobs. And that was another fun period of my life. And when I say fun, I say I really mean frustrating. So
opposite of fun.
it is exactly. So I feel like those 5 years in Denmark were very formative 5 years, very challenging in both good and bad way. But I don't think I would be where I am without it. So grateful for that experience, happy memories, and of course, yeah, challenging times as well.
Yeah, it's always interesting how challenging times or tough projects or layoffs really can guide a
professional's career and just where they take things. I know I had a lot of challenges on one of my first projects that I almost left the profession,
Mm,
but it really shaped who I am as an architect, how I think, and even Mentor Dino and how that started. So it's a tough project that I would never wanna relive. It was not fun, and I would never wish it upon anybody, but it's weird how those critical moments can really impact where we take our careers that we wouldn't have expected.
absolutely.
So how does practicing architecture in different countries in Europe work? Like, I know in the States, I'm able to transfer my license with particular documentations out to, like, Australia, and London is a new connection if I wanna practice in the UK. So how does getting education to different countries and licensure work, flipping back and forth? I know you're not practicing in Prague,
Yeah.
but
Well, that's a good question. I have experience from the Czech Republic, obviously, and Denmark. And when we talk about the education, it'll be very dependent on the school that you choose. I want to stress out one huge difference, and that is that during bachelor studies here in Prague, everything was very individual work, and you were on your own in every subject. uh, Even in studios. We had a little bit of group work, maybe at the
Mhm.
beginning to kind of kick things off, but then you would be on your own and you would be delivering for yourself and kind of defending yourself. In Denmark, we had completely different experience. Everything was group work, everything was
Mm.
teamwork, 2 to 6 people in a group. And that's where it got interesting because you have 6 different individualities. And one thing that was surprising and challenging for me is that in a bigger group like that, there was always at least 1 or 2 people that would kind of go with the flow and kind of ride a wave when others would be the working force. And it of course created a number of discussions and kind of crisis managements needed to be held and things like that. So being exposed to a very different environment, very international environment, group work, it was completely like night and day. And also here in Prague, we were very much drilled in the old school techniques, and everything was hand drawn, handwritten, static calculations, acoustic calculations, everything by hand on A4 papers. While in Denmark, all of these calculations and simulations were done digitally using Grasshopper and Rhino and all sorts of cool stuff. So again, very different approaches. So I think it was very eye opening. That was the change we kind of called for. It was a little manifested, and together I think it was a great combination of having that individual really foundation and very old school oriented traditional hand drawn handwritten, and building on top of it with something maybe more contemporary, but very different nonetheless.
Yeah, and it also gets you used to working in practice because you're rarely ever just doing everything on your own. You're
Correct.
coordinating between engineers, other designers, and principals. So, and the dynamic of tech versus hand drawn. I know my education, we still started out hand drawing everything.
Yeah.
And then it flipped halfway through to technology. And now when I go back to my university, it's all tech to start. And I'm like, where's that hand drawing side? Like, I like sitting on a construction site and sketching out a detail on my notebook. I don't like having to jump to technology right away to problem solve details and working through ideas. And so it's weird how schools change and how different things can be as much help as Grasshopper and coding and stuff can take
Yeah.
things to an extreme that you don't have to iterate constantly. It's like sometimes you miss I like that pen and paper aspect.
That's very much what I've experienced with this shift, with being exposed to a different, very international environment with students from all over Europe. I found out, and it was very surprising to me, uh, that not everybody has gone through kind of the same bachelor degree. We were drilled very much. We had 4 semesters in hand drawing per se, I realized that some schools didn't really teach drawing at all. Didn't have artistic entrance exams, and each school has their own rules when it comes to acceptance and the entrance exams and the skills that they require to enter the school. And based on that, they teach you more. And I realized that a lot of the schools skipped, just as you said, skipped the traditional hand drawing right away to digital tools and softwares. And we've seen a big trend like this since 90s where really technology and all the software starting with CAD and BIM and 5D BIM and now VR, AR, AI, and so much more is overshadowing, of course, the traditional craft.
Hmm.
But the good news, the silver lining that I saw in that was that when I was applying for my first jobs as an expat with no contacts in a new city, fresh graduate, very little speaking. Danish is very for me it was very hard, like two languages, one that you write with and one that you speak with, and I saw no kind of resemblance in between. So that was my situation in Copenhagen after graduation. And I realized that most other students and graduates and my peers, they were not taught how to draw. So after hundreds, 100 plus applications and 100 plus rejections, I chose a different strategy. And I showed up with not only my portfolio, but also a few of my sketches, hand drawn sketches. The strategy was to show it to the decision makers who were a little older generation who used to do
Hmm.
everything by hand. And therefore, they knew the value of hand drawing, of thinking with pencil, of putting your ideas on paper, brainstorming, problem solving, exactly as you mentioned with detail on the construction side. Like that's a natural way for older generation at least of architects to think and go through the problem and draw something up, right? So they saw the value in it, and because not many of my peers were trained to do it, they didn't have a chance. The schools didn't offer it to them, and they didn't have a chance to build a relationship with sketching as a tool. I think it helped me stand out, and it helped me landed my first jobs. So this realization actually led to me starting with, okay, there are a lot of other peers who have not experience with sketching but they would like to. It's also a methodology in the school, official methodology, which includes sketching, even though the school doesn't really teach it. So maybe I could put together some basic tips and tricks and techniques which I was drilled with back in Prague, and help these young professionals to to start a relationship and get the foundation, master the foundation of architectural sketching. So that's where the idea emerged, and I started working on it after we graduated, as I was looking for a full time job at the same time. So that's where the fun slash frustrating period of my life comes.
Yeah, but you eventually found a job, assuming that the sketches led you finally to a
I
position.
did. I did. I think it was a combination of just persistence.
Hmm.
It was almost a year. I think it was 10 months after graduation. Um, a recommendation portfolio and my sketches led me to my first job. I was so excited. I remember it was June. It was summer. The weather was nice. Everything started to look bright after almost a year. um, in between, I was working on that sketch like an architect. I was working on Instagram. I had a few internships. I had a volunteering job. So I kept myself busy. But the
Hmm.
real stuff was, my mom's question: how did that interview go? Did you land that job yet? Have you got a job yet? So it was very, very heartbreaking to keep saying no, no, no,
Hmm.
not yet. So I was very happy. I landed my first job. It was unlimited contract, and after 4 months, I quit because it was not the right fit. It was
Hmm.
not the right fit. And it was not about the people. It was not about, it was just not the right fit. I didn't want to be doing what I was, tasked with. Very basically a drafting, you know, CAD
I caught a CAD
position
monkey.
that, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's still. I don't want to sound ungrateful or anything. It was. I'm very happy I landed that first job, and it taught me what I don't want.
Hmm.
And after 4 months, I actually got another opportunity, which was and ended up being a dream job. So I quit my first job and I went for the other opportunity, and I spent the rest of my time in Denmark there. And that was just fantastic. I was working with my strengths, with visualizations, with BIM, with sketching, with 3D modeling. Great team, interesting projects. Everything was like I felt much better in that position, and I was grateful to muster the courage to say, hey, this is not working for
Hmm.
me at least. So let's end it here.
Yeah, and that's important, especially since you were looking for a job for a year. When the first offer comes in, it's like, okay, I got to grab it. Whenever I graduated school, there were still remnants of the 2008 recession in the States,
Hmm.
and there weren't job opportunities. You're reaching out to whoever, and the first firm that gave me a job offer, I took it. It ended up working out, and I was there for 5, 6 years, I think, but it wasn't like I had options
Right.
to pick out. But I've also had the switch of my second job. It just wasn't a good fit. And I was burned out and, needed a change. And so many professionals, they stick it out a year. And you know in your gut when something doesn't work and you need to change and pivot. So I think that's also important that as much as it took you so long to find that first job, when something else can come along and you've learned from the first job on what you don't want, more importantly, but can align for what your passions are and what you want to do is important. So, were you still working on Sketch Like an Architect while you're in your dream job?
Yes, I was actually. That fun period of my time after graduation, I realized it's a very precious, rare time of my life where I have some time on my hands that I would not necessarily have in the future ever, because it's a transition period. It's like the longest summer break you have between high school and university. It's like after university, or if you take a gap year, right? There's like some breaking points and transition periods where you could explore stuff that you wouldn't otherwise have a chance to. So I took it as an opportunity to, yeah, do that volunteering, have some internship, but I also started working more consistently on the Sketch Like an Architect project, which meant creating educational material on architectural sketching. And I started posting it on Instagram. I chose Instagram because I thought to myself, okay, I'm looking for a job. That's my primary job. I should probably get a website so I can present myself better. But that was 2000, what, 16. It felt really huge and overwhelming to set up a website for the first time ever. I was like, oh, that's a little too overwhelming. Everybody was talking about Instagram. Let's start with Instagram. I can post pictures like from my portfolio. So I started there, and I started documenting that process of creating Sketch Like an Architect, and the educational and the ebook and the course. I just started sharing tips and documenting the process behind the scenes. And it was, I think, pretty great golden years on Instagram where it was enough to post nice pictures with a
Mhm.
certain niche and focus to grow quite quickly. At least that was my impression. And of course, I delved into it. I learned all I could about the platform and how it works. And I was posting every day for the next 2 years, even during my dream job. So I still kept it on the side. And it was even more validating because I had a real job. I could share some behind the scenes of how I actually sketch at my work and what it comes out as, you know, before and after, and all the thought process that goes into it. So I think it was great. And I kept it in parallel. So I was working as an architect for a mid-sized firm, Danielson Architecture, 50, 60 people, in-house visualizations, BIM modeling. I was learning how to use BIM in the real life, because again, at school it was very individualistic, and
Mhm.
that's not what BIM really stands for. It's about the collaboration, whether it's with your peers on the same project, you have multiple people working on the same file, or you share with other professionals, right? So that was great, and I kept it in parallel, still building my Instagram, and I think I was at maybe 10,000 followers around the first year I was in my dream job. So it was slowly taking off at that time.
Yeah, and then I even wanna jump to when you decided to move back to Prague. So what was the reasoning for shifting back to Prague, and was that the shift of kind of, "Let's just run with it and see what happens?"
Right. Well, two things. The main reason we came back to Prague was a very solid reason. We were expecting our first kid, and we wanted to be home when it comes. We wanted to be with our family and friends and closer to them. So we always knew we wanted to come back home. And the first kid, we were already married. So we just came back for that. And at the same time, the working conditions in Denmark are pretty, they spoil you. Like, you have 37 hours a week, including lunch, very well compensated, work life balance, all that stuff. It's like, it's very nice. And I knew I would never be able to get anything close to that in the Czech Republic.
Mhm.
Uh,
Maybe I should move
so
to Denmark.
yeah, like, it was pretty great. I gotta admit. Of course, every country has something, but the working conditions for architects, I'd say, much better than in the Czech Republic. So I felt a little discouraged to continue my architecture practice, or being practicing architect in a studio in the Czech Republic, and I felt, okay, the sketch like an architect is showing some promise. Let's take this opportunity to, and looking back in hindsight, I was very naive, and I, like, knowing what I know now, I would never do that. But I was just, it felt good. You know i I
Just trust in the
felt like,
gut.
we had a kind of a roadmap for the first year. When we come back, I was like, okay, let's just give this a go full time. Let's see where it goes, if I can actually, make it a living. And yeah, I never looked back. So in 2019, we came back. I started working on this full time, and I thought, when I'll be able to dedicate full time hours into this project, it would grow so much faster. What I realized is two things. One, I needed to kill the hobby. I needed to kill sketching as a hobby in order to make it a business. And two, I was not progressing much faster than when I was doing it just in the evenings and early mornings and on the weekends. I was
Mhm.
not. There's just so much more, but the productivity doesn't go like linearly with that. So, and I've talked to a number of other creators who went from side hustling to full time, and they told me the same thing. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, I would be so much more productive doing this full time. It would be a dream. No, it's not as dreamy, and it's not all rainbows and butterflies as it sounds. But I stuck to it anyway, and yeah, here we are.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the first challenge or the first thing you learned, like, you wouldn't do that again?
To kill the hobby?
Yeah.
No.
So, was it
I was
because
just
you
naive.
always
Yeah,
wanted to sketch, like, 24/7? Is that what you meant by kill the hobby?
I meant the relationship with sketching, because if you have a hobby, and it can be any hobby,
Mhm.
you do it for the pure joy, to recover energy. It's something that gives you energy and joy, and you enjoy doing, and you have some kind of fulfillment, maybe creative fulfillment out of it. When it's a job or a business, you have to do it to perform,
Mhm.
and you have to hit that performance marks to make it sustainable. And I think that's a hard switch. That's a hard mindset shift, and it's a hard pill to swallow, right? So because I had to draw even when I didn't want to. That's not a hobby.
Hmm.
But at the same time, at the beginning, it didn't pay that much, so it was kind of a bad hobby, So you go through these stages from, wow, I really enjoy this. It's a great hobby. Maybe I can turn it into something more meaningful and income and maybe a business, and maybe I can support myself and my family. And then you find out, okay, I need to be doing this right now. It's not that joyful anymore. Oh,
Hmm.
and it needs to perform and it needs to earn money and like all of these other things that are related to starting a business. And it's like, oh, this is not as much fun as I thought it would be,
Yeah,
right?
it's a lot of
So
working on the business versus in the business kind of concept because now you're bringing together both and having to structure it, see what's going on, and it's not just the components of actual sketching. There's so much
yeah,
more beyond it when you flip over to the business side.
if you're an architect or other architects are listening to this, maybe you can relate. I'd be interested to hear from other people. When I started first internships and work in architecture, it was the internships during the studies. I thought all I would be doing or all architecture practice is about is the designing. That's like I thought it would be maybe 80-90% of the time. My experience was in a small studio, the actual design is maybe what 15% of the time. The other
Yeah.
10 is just business, getting leads, getting new clients, following up, emails, meetings, all sorts of stuff. Um, the actual designing part was very minimal, and I was like, is this really what it looks like? If
Yeah.
so, then I don't think I want to have my own studio, maybe ever, right? So there was like a lot of, but you gotta throw yourself in to find out and give yourself an opportunity to maybe work for a small studio, a mid-size and big. And I realized that the mid-size 50-ish people is really what, maybe it's an environment where I thrive the most and I feel the best. So that's what Daniel's in architecture, that what the dream job was for me back then. But all the other options didn't seem that attractive.
Yeah. And I think studio and architecture school leads students to believe that you're going to do design 24/7. They don't
Yeah,
teach you the business side of architecture. They don't teach you, hey, how to put a drawing set together because, in the end, what we are providing to the contractor are drawings and specifications. And
yeah.
so there is the written side of architecture, there's the detailing side, and
Well, we
only a
did
s-
that.
only a
We
small group of professionals actually end up down like a
Yeah.
design lead path. So,
Now, luckily, we were at the CTU in Prague. We were going full way with the drawing sets and the written text and the detailing and workshop drawings and all that. So, but that's still just just such a small part, and it's actually almost like a byproduct of everything else. It's like
mhm.
the visible, tangible thing that you give to the contractors or clients, but all the other work that's related, that's not really that shown or visible or obvious during studios in architecture school. So yeah, definitely, like we always talk about huge gap between the arca well, what's called
Mhm.
academia and real world, real life practice, especially in the AEC industry. And it's like the gap, depending on your school, it can be really really wide. And that's what I think and I hear drives a lot of people away from the profession in the AEC. So yeah, that's where we're at, and I think things are maybe slightly, we hear new voices, talking about how the industry should change and what's the direction we should take. So I'm happy for that, but I think we're at the very beginning of anything that can be called course correction or
Mhm.
change.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of components to what architects do, and just trying to find the time to teach all of it too can be hard. Um, but I think a lot of programs are missing particular components that can help kind of students understand like the full profession in what they do so they don't have that like deer in headlights look when
Yeah.
they find a firm and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm just detailing. I'm not even part of the design," or what types of firms should I be a part of that then has integral pieces. So if like your first firm is really small, you may have a little bit more connection to the business side, but you'll have to do everything. Whereas those middle-sized firms, okay, they're doing a little bit more with BIM. They're sometimes the first adopters to VR and AR and different components. But then if you really want to specialize in something, then maybe a large firm works for you. And everybody's different in what their flavor and passion is.
Yeah. At the same time, I wanna share the philosophy that I've heard, and I agree with, and that is that any university or college that is supposedly, supposed to prepare you for your profession, it's not actually its purpose or its goal, and it's never complete. Like, university is not to prepare you for the real life practice. It is there to give you an exciting, thriving environment for you to grow and to open your eyes. But I think the promise of preparing you for the real life work is at least misleading, and I
Hmm.
don't think it's the real purpose of universities, right? So maybe it's our perception of what universities should do for us, or yeah, it's like we have some issues with the definition, what it really helps us to achieve and how long it actually takes. So having that caveat to it maybe would, I don't want to say close the gap, but maybe prepare you in terms of expectations,
Hmm.
what the real life practice is. And I mean, the internships are great during the studies, um, but yeah, I don't think there's an easy answer to that big question of how to actually prepare for real life practice. And I don't think it's just for architecture. There are other professions similar to this as well. So yeah, it's a big question, and we just got to be improving at it a bit by bit, I feel.
Yeah, approving and adjusting, and even adjusting to new technologies. Like I have a lot of students that have 3D printers on their desk, and 3D
Mm,
printing just came out when I was in school. So it's like, this is cool that you're getting like
yeah,
this exposure early.
yeah,
So even as much as I don't 3D print all the time in practice, but I have professionals that do it as a hobby. And it's
yeah,
just fun because they learned it early. And so it can create hobbies and part of practice. So you never know. But on the technology note, I know with even Sketch Like an Architect, not everything is pen and paper. You
correct.
also do digital sketching. So was
I
that
do.
a part of it originally, or can you talk about what the difference is between doing digital sketching versus more traditional sketching, I'll say?
Yeah, here's what I believe. I do both. And I fell in love with both worlds, the traditional and the digital. And when I say digital sketching, what I really mean is nowadays sketching on iPad. What I believe is that the best approach is to start getting your sketching and drawing foundation on paper with traditional tools, because it's simple tools that really connect your hand and your mind, and you learn the basics, the principles, the perspective, the shading, the design principles, the proportion, the scale, all of that. It's, I feel, a lot easier to draw and to learn just with pencil or pen in hand on paper with very simple tools. Because when you go and let's say you want to learn Morpholio Trace on iPad, or you want to learn Procreate on iPad, the thing is, if you can't really draw and you don't have the basics, the foundations, you still need to learn it. But on top of it, you also need to learn the app. So
Hmm.
you're combining learning of soft skills and hard skills in one. And that can feel really, really daunting and really frustrating and overwhelming at start. So whoever has already drawing skills in traditional sense, they are transferable to digital. You just need to figure out the UI of an app and where to click and where's the brush that you like to use, and you're good to go. You can basically transfer all the skills that you hard earned in past years to digital. That's not an issue. But starting purely on digital, it might feel really sexy. And it might feel like it's a great shiny object, but you might find yourself very much struggling because of the lack of foundation and or learning the bad habits and kind of
Mhm.
shortcuts that won't serve you in the long term. So that's what I realized. I love both. My path was the one that I recommend because I've lived it, I've experienced it. I can recommend it further. And at the same time, I've had clients who wants to just jump into the digital because they come to me. Maybe they are interior design and they say, I feel like I've missed the train and I'm
Mhm.
trying to catch up. I hear that a lot, right? Or I want to be more efficient. I just don't want to be, drawing on tracing papers and scanning and photoshopping all the time. And it's great for that, but we need to have the right foundations in order to make the most out of the digital tools, right? So they won't save you, but they can amplify the drawing skills that you already have.
Yeah. And I know, I guess one of my struggles with tech is like Morpholio Trace is the like prime product that I'm always told for architects is the best direction to go, but I am not an Apple product user. So I'm like, I'd hate to buy an iPad just for that. And I'm like, God, I haven't found that tech on the either Microsoft or Android, anything. Like I've messed with concepts, but then it's just on my phone. And I'm like, no, I need a pen. I need something to draw with.
Can I
Or
can I let you on a secret?
yeah,
It's probably something you don't want to hear, but I
go
think
buy an
it's true. I
iPad.
I believe it's true. No, I believe that the very best drawing apps are on iPad only.
Hmm.
It's like it's not about the iPad itself, it's about the apps and where they are available.
Yep.
And I have all, it's one of the most common questions like, is there some kind of alternative for Android tablets? I'm not aware of one, not even close.
Yeah. Not to get
So,
the different use styles. Like I even like what I like about just my own line weights and hand drafting is I
yeah,
can change the line weight and the depth really quickly. And it's just on pressure point, and I'm like, I don't wanna have to click and do 10,000 things, or being able to do, like, quick straight lines, like, I can do straight lines by hand, but then you second you put it on a screen, it's like the app makes it harder. I'm like, I'm literally doing the same thing as my
mhm.
hand drawing, and so that's been my struggle, and so I keep debating if I wanna jump in and go with the tech side, but at the same time, hand drafting and hand drawing, I feel like I never have the time and the patience. Like, I took hand drawing when I studied abroad in Florence, and it was fantastic. Beyond just the architecture you're surrounded with, the States is very boring for if you wanna sketch anything for the most part. And it's, you got time, and it's, "No, you're gonna go to this place, you can sit wherever you want, and you're just gonna sketch that perspective view based on that vantage point," and it carved out time for me to sit and do it. Whereas now it's like things are moving 10,000 miles an hour to keep up and try to do hand sketching at work. They tend to be the really quick chicken scratch, you get the point across and you move on. So, do you have any recommendations for that, like how practicing and learning can transition to speed and practice? If you have one, I don't know.
Well, that's a very
It could be very American of me
big
to not
loaded
slow
question
down.
in a way. Like we're trying to unpack a lot at the same time. And you mentioned, sketching. There's not just one type of sketching, even for us architects. Like you mentioned the, how did you call it, chicken what,
The my chicken scratch.
chicken scratch.
Yeah,
And
so,
I get that. That
your quick
we
little,
do a
like,
lot of,
boxes and how things come together,
yeah,
especially with teaching young architects how things come together.
yeah.
Sometimes I will sketch a detail, but it's a very rudimentary sketch. And,
Yeah,
insulation will be like a squiggle, and it's like,
yeah,
hey, you get the point. I joke, I talk in like adjectives and verbs, because I'll just say, hey, the flashing goes like boop, boop, boop. And they
yeah,
just see my pencil move, and I'm I'm just making up words. And it's that quick sketch, but it's never to the point I'm not drawing like a very detail oriented picture for them. I'd rather print out something and put trace on top of it and then
yeah,
educate them through diagrams, but then I don't have to create the base from scratch.
yeah.
So that's, I guess, more technical based rather than.
No, yeah, but like that's we have internal sketching and external sketching, right? Internal is, and it can be the chicken scratch. Chicken scratch can be actually both. Like you're trying to make sense of your thought on paper just for yourself, to figure out things for yourself, understand your own thoughts.
Mhm.
And then you have a very quickie that can get a point across to your student or maybe a colleague or a contractor. It doesn't have to be beautiful, it just needs to be fast and communicate what it's supposed to on that spot, right? And this can happen both internally and externally. And then we have another axis, which is more about okay, is it quick and dirty or is it presentational? And
Mhm.
we have a spectrum with these two on the ends, right? And very often, even from my experience, during practice in real life of an architect, 80% of sketches, if you do sketches at all, 80% of them at least are these quick and dirty.
Mhm.
So it's not always the stuff that you put into your portfolio or that you present to your clients. But there are times when presenting something quickly without any 3D model, maybe based on a photo, maybe you're on a site, maybe it's a remodel, renovation, you're going through that house with your client or potential client, and you're gesturing a lot with your hands. This goes there and the cabinet there, and here's the detail. I can see the material and all that stuff, but they can't see it because they
Mhm.
can't visualize exactly what you have in mind. It's very hard for anyone. We are not mind readers. So, what you can do is to grab that iPad, take a photo, and draw on top of the photo. The advantages with tools like Procreate and Morpholio Trace, either it can help you directly establish the perspective based on a photo that you take, or there is some perspective assistance that you can quickly set up to make really quick sketches that look precise in perspective on top of a photo. Everybody can understand photos, especially if you're in that space already, and you can start drawing into that on the spot within minutes. They have basically, they get a visualization from you, which is just a very quick drafty sketch,
Mhm.
but they can suddenly feel more immersed. And maybe they will point out something that you need to change, and it starts a discussion, and it's a conversation opener. And right away, it's not a one-way communication; it's a dialogue. And they
Yeah.
are getting more emotionally invested in the process, right? And at the same time, you're learning more about them. You're getting feedback and see maybe their expressions, their body language. All of that is happening thanks to sketching and not just gesturing with your hands, right? So the sketching is very universal. It's like a universal language that anyone can read, and it's not hard to learn to speak it. So that kind of sums up why the sketch like an architect exists in the first place. The problem is that universities don't teach it anymore or not enough, but experts and professionals, they are still expected to do it, and they very much benefit from doing it in any scenario. So that kind of brings me, yeah, what the gist of sketch like an architect and why it's here. And talking with many clients, we've seen all these different use cases, whether it's in the studio with their peers, with clients, contractors, bosses, or with on the side, and just getting the idea across. So when it comes down, at the end of the day, it comes down to effective visual communication.
Yeah. It all comes down to communication, because not
Pretty
everybody's
much.
good at reading a floor plan, but like you said, they can understand the environment around them.
Yeah.
And so if you can relay that whether you're talking to a contractor that builds it all the time, because sometimes things can be misconstrued with words, but sometimes if
Mm.
you can put words with a visual, you can tell if something's broken and ask the right questions. Or if you've got a client that has really never built something before and never even looked at architectural drawings, but they can understand imagery better. It's a communication tool because it all comes down to architecture is communication, and it's just in an art form is typically what we're doing.
I like there's a definition that I've heard a while ago what a designer is, and it's super simple. I love it because of it. It has just two components. Designer is someone who solves problems and communicates the solutions.
Yeah, that's
So a
I love
designer
it.
is problem solver and communicator. That's it. That's the
Yep.
two essential roles of any designer.
Yeah,
And
and I love how
we're
concise that is. Like, it's
yeah, it
just
is.
simple.
It really boils it down to the absolute, essentials. And I think sketching helps in both of these roles. So
Definitely.
that's my why.
Yeah, it's a big why. So, Sketch Like an Architect's gone more than just an ebook and a course. What all are you doing with it right now?
Right. What I love about it most is it's an ecosystem of things and products and services that I enjoy doing, and I get to kind of facilitate and bring together. So yeah, the online education through online courses and ebooks is definitely one and probably the most popular aspect of it. But I also do one-on-one coaching, especially for most of my clients are a bit more experienced who want to transition to digital sketching on iPad with
Mm,
Morpholio Trace very often because that's probably the most suitable tool for them. And they're either landscape designers or interior designers or architects. It really works for them all. Um, and I also teach in person here in Prague. I teach interior design and I teach them both. I teach them hand sketching and drawing on paper and also on iPad. And what I host every year now, it's twice a year, is a big online event, uh, like an online summit, where I invite dozens of other instructors, artists, designers, creators, people who can teach something amazing when it comes to architectural sketching. So we have the iPad for Architects Summit, which I run every March, and now coming up in October, we have the sketching retreat, which is usually the event of the year for me. We're again having almost 50 instructors this time, architects, designers, creators, artists, illustrators, who each teach a workshop, short workshop, around 20-30 minutes on their own topic. It's all pre-recorded, and you have it as a buffet during a free week-long or 6-day long event where you can pick and choose whatever you like, and go in the workshop with them, follow the video. It's very much actionable. It's very often draw along. You very often have some tangible result at the end of the workshop, and people just love it. People love the diversity. People love different takes, and even if different instructors teach kind of the same subject when it
hmm
comes to perspective drawing, people drawing, I don't know, entourage, whatever it is, or watercolor, they all have different experiences, backgrounds, different takes, different spins, and it's great to learn from so many different angles. So I think we build every year like a huge community where we share our creations, ask questions, give feedback, get feedback. Last year we had over 25,000 attendees, so it's getting quite massive. But it's a lot of work to pull off, but it's so worth it, and always the energy that the instructors bring is just awesome and phenomenal. So yeah, these are probably I guess I haven't mentioned absolutely everything, but these are some key components of what Sketch Like an Architect offers today. And I don't even mention the physical books or YouTube content or Instagram or things like that. So There's a lot, and my goal is, I know there are different types of learners, and sketching is definitely a teachable and learnable skill, but it depends. People love books very often, and sometimes they need the visual demonstration on video, step by step, that they can pause, they can follow along, or there's the one-on-one access as well. So there are different kinds of learning: online, offline, live, in person or not. So I'm very excited to keep experimenting with different formats, but I usually stick to what is most popular and what works for both my students and me, and that's what you can find on the website.
Yeah. Are those summits all virtual since
Yes,
they're all recorded?
yes, everything's pre-recorded and everything's virtual, so you can join from anywhere in the world, which is a nice thing. We also, this year, it was the very first time that we hosted an urban sketching retreat here in Prague in person. For We're 15 people all together, two instructors, and it was a different kind of experience, right? Most
Mhm.
of what I do is online, but getting in person with people for 5 days. It was a 5 day event. It was just magical, and it was so exciting to explore my own city, my hometown, with a group of students and excited hobby sketchers mostly. It was phenomenal, and it's really nicely balanced out all the online and just looking into the screen, very often just looking at yourself most of the
Mhm.
time, recording, compared to having a real human connection and feedback and all these things in real time and in person. So that was great.
Yeah, I know I hit that a lot with my training videos because oftentimes it's myself just talking. Like, I don't have an audience there to like listen to or watch their face. But then when you get opportunities to do workshops or presentations in person and you get that like instant feedback, it's very different as much as, digital pause, start, stop is really a way a lot of people like to learn, especially whether it be tech and step by step or hand drafting. It's like, oh, I want to see you do that again, but you'd hate to like, tell you in person, wait, do that
Yeah,
again, like
yeah,
keep repeating. So, but it's hard and it's different. I remember walking around Florence when I did those sketches, and you'd get people walk up behind you to like see your sketching, and I'm like, don't look at my sketches, they're awful. It's just very imposter syndrome of like, I'm not an artist. There's so many other artists in Florence. Go buy
yeah,
their work. I'm
yeah.
just learning. But what's been one surprising thing that you've learned from teaching sketching along your journey?
One surprising thing. I think I got to think about it a little bit. Um, I think what never fails to surprise me is just the pre assumptions that people have about themselves, which are really hard to unfold sometimes, and about sketching. But I think I have a good feel for what people think about sketching. People think you need to have talent, and if you don't have it, you're screwed. Or people ask what are the best tools, even if they are beginners, and the real answer is the tools don't matter that much. Like what type of pencils and pens you use, but what never fails to surprise me is kind of unfolding the limiting beliefs, the imposter syndrome, the things that hold them back for so long. And they're very actually easy to overcome if they're spoken out loud. So I think that's very personal and individual, and that's something that's just hard to guess, because
Mhm.
sometimes you get young people who are maybe studying architecture or fresh graduates, and sometimes you get 60 plus year old hobbyists, and they have wildly different life experiences and life stages that they're at. So they are the worldview and the view of themselves is very very different, and I think that kind of surprises me every time. And it's more about, again, opening that human to human connection,
Hmm.
which is a lot of fun. But the questions that they ask, they actually, and I think that's a general rule, the questions that we ask tell a lot more about ourselves than whatever answer we get tells about who answers, if that makes sense.
No, definitely. Because I even, as you were talking, I was thinking about how I sketch or how I learn because I took a lot of art classes growing up, and I remember when I was young, I didn't care. I was drawing cartoons, I was sketching homes, I was sketching like different animations from Disney. I hate drawing people, but I can draw a really good eye, and I just can't get like the symmetry. But like I like sketching in pencil because I know I'm gonna make mistakes, or I'm not gonna like a line weight, or I'm not gonna like a gesture I did, and I wanna be able to fix and amend my work. And a lot of people wanna jump right to pen, and then they wanna like push you down a direction that then becomes more stressful to sketch.
Yeah,
And I don't care what kind of pencil I have. I don't care if it's a mechanical, not artistic pencil. If it's there and I need to sketch something out, I'm gonna do it. It may not be, the artist's pamphlet of sketching resources. And the tools you use are important, but it also is very much psychology based. Like pen
yeah,
versus pencil for me is all in my head and what I do and why I'm sketching. And if there's a line mistake, who cares?
yeah.
So I think
One
that's
thing
impactful.
One thing that I like to point out, and students often laugh at first before they find out I'm serious. We start with pencils very often. Even when we follow up with fine liners or color markers or
Mhm,
watercolor, very often we start with pencil. Pencil is actually a hard medium to master, but most people, when they draw something they don't like it, they take an eraser and they erase it, and then they start again. My rule is throw away the eraser.
mm,
Don't use it unless you're pretty much finished, and you can use eraser for drawing as well, right? For making marks. But the philosophy, the thinking behind it is, if you make a mistake, wrong line, and you fix it, you don't fix it, you erase it. You are much more inclined to make the same mistake again and again and again and again. While if you keep the line because you threw away your eraser, you're forced to not only live with it, but you're forced to adjust and improve based on the first mistake. It's just like in life, in business, the first product, the first iteration, your first idea for an architecture project, it usually sucks. All
mhm,
of us are the same. So even our first lines can suck, and it's okay. We just improve based on them, right? So that's why I like to keep everything, and I don't want to erase from the beginning, because I will arrive at a better result if I keep the mistakes in, because I can learn from them on the way. So, and it kind of goes in hand with drawing lightly and pulling your pencil, not pushing it. So you're drawing very lightly. You're finding the shapes, you're finding the lines, you're finding the proportions. That's part of the process. And if you erase it, you're kind of starting from square one all the time. And I don't think that that's a healthy habit. So that's my take.
mhm.
So we actually throw away the erasers at the beginning. Everyone is scared, but we push through it, and most of them they are glad they did.
Yeah, no, I love that thought process and the mentality of it. So next time I'm going and sketching something, I'm not gonna use my eraser, or I'm gonna start buying pencils that don't have erasers, so
Yeah,
I can't even be tempted. So I know I've learned a lot just even talking about sketching on this call. So I always like wrapping up my podcast with this final question. And it's, what advice do you have for young professionals just starting their careers?
Hmm. Okay, am I allowed to elude this question by just being smart pants? Um,
You can do
and,
whatever you
and
want.
I mean it in a very self-deprecating way. I've heard from a great designer. I'm thinking about a name. He's very popular and famous online. He's an influencer. Chris Do. He's a graphic designer, founder or co-founder of the Future company. He said one time, and I remembered it because I get asked about advice kind of all the time, different kinds of advice. Um, and I realized that Chris Do is right about this. And he says, um, amateurs give advice and professionals diagnose. So since then, I've taken a hard look at myself in the mirror, and I realized that giving advice is like a very, it feels good. It's a good practice. It may help a few people out, but if it's thrown out into the internet, into the public, just generally, you never know if it really applies to you and your situation unless I ask you questions beforehand to diagnose, right? You
Hmm.
don't go to a doctor to say, hey, give me advice, and he says, okay, yeah, just get get this pill 3 times a day. I'm like, okay. They need to
Yeah.
ask what for, what your problem is, what you're struggling with, where do you want to go from where you are, right? All these questions. So um I reserved a little from giving these kind of unsolicited advice that may or may not apply to you, the listener, at this time, at this stage of your life and career. And there are so many variables. So ever since that quote from Chris Do, I've been a little more shy about giving advice, and usually what I give back is just more questions about where you are. And actually, from what I've come to experience, is that the career and very often business is great not because of what you build for others, but because of the journey that it takes you to discover yourself and kind of coming back to self-awareness game,
Hmm.
right? So the more you know about yourself, the better decisions you can make. So very often when we don't know the answers, it is worth a try to look inside first before asking externally, if you know what I mean, if it makes sense.
Yeah. No, that definitely makes sense because it's
And
even a
sorry for
hard
alluding, but
and
yeah.
it's so hard for professionals to do that, or they get it's a lot like you're on the architect path and you're going that path, and sometimes something doesn't feel right, so somebody wants to ask for advice, but, like, anybody could give advice on any different direction. I would not have a passion to be a sustainability director. Sustainability is important to me, but I don't have that much of a passion, but I need to take a look at myself to understand what is that energizer. Like we talked about, sketching was an energizer for you and what you're working on. And I usually tell professionals to take a log of what energizes and what drains them because it's all about learning about yourself
Hmm.
to where you want to go next. Because where you go next, it may be a brand new path that nobody has done before or a medley of things. And so, or you just stumble upon it. Like you stumbled upon Sketch Like an Architect. I'm sure when you were in school, you weren't anticipating doing this as your job. You were anticipating just doing architecture. So,
Yeah.
analyzing yourself constantly and what situation you're in, what's going on at the time, you moving back to Prague because of your kids, like there are other situations that are going to change where you are and what stage of life you're in, but it's up to you to figure that out. And it can be hard.
Yeah. 100%. I feel like sometimes it's really hard to know if you encounter an obstacle or a struggle. Sometimes it's hard to differentiate between, is that because I'm on the wrong path, or is it just a roadblock? Is it just an obstacle that I'm supposed to overcome?
Hmm.
Or is it a sign that this is a wrong path for me? And like differentiating these two that gets, that requires some looking inside rather than outside. And you might hear different takes on it from different people. You might hear from people who decided to kind of quit this career and they made a pivot to
Mhm.
another career. And you hear from people who pushed through. But maybe sometimes, what scared me the most, I guess it still scares me, is what if, despite all the hard work and effort and pushing through, when I actually achieve everything I've set out to achieve, I realize that, oh, wait, that's not a destination I want it to be. I'm
Mhm.
not happy now. You know what I mean? I don't feel enough now, you
Yeah.
know? So it's, yeah, we're getting much deeper into this, and I don't want to have answers. I'm one of you, or one of those who are looking for their own answers. So that's something that I'm usually excited to explore, but it's very kind of inner deep work, and just a little bit of external sources that may help. But I believe most of the work is actually done inside.
Yeah, because you can definitely find guidance, but until you know what questions to ask or the right people to ask, then you kind of go at something blind.
Yeah.
So,
And sometimes the best people we can find as not the ones that give us answers, but the ones that can ask us the right questions at the right time, right?
hmm
And then that's how we can see their experience. They're not telling us what to do. They're asking guiding questions, and if we answer them honestly, then we get the answers we were looking for in the first place.
yeah, definitely. And if anybody wants to get a hold of you, sign up for any of your summits or one on ones, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
I'll make it super simple. There's just one place that hopefully will be updated soon, and you should find all the info that you wish for, and that's the website, sketchlikeanarchitect.com. There's also a contact form if you want to reach me directly, and you should be able to find everything that's available at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll leave your website link in the show notes below. So it should be a really quick link for everybody to find and hopefully work on their sketching skills. But I want to thank you, David, for taking the time to speak with me today. I know I've learned a lot and it was a fantastic learning experience.
It was a blast for me as well. Thank you for having me again, and yeah, appreciate the invitation.
I hope you enjoyed our discussion today. Learn some advice to take with you and see how our industry is all tied together to create the world around us. Check out the description below for any links or resources we discussed. If you liked the episode, please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up and leave a comment below. It really helps others be able to discover this resource and support finding that career path that best works for them. If you know someone that has inspired your own career that you'd like me to interview, let me know in the comments below, or you can reach out to me via my website or LinkedIn. I'd be happy to share their story or your own. Thank you again, and I cannot wait for the next career story I get to share with you next week.